They're kind of blowing my mind. These are kind of the perfect headphone response to the well, hello. This episode of Some Gadget Guy is brought to you by you. Yeah, you. All of you amazing people out there sharing content on social media, and the generosity of my patrons on patreon.com/SomeGadgetGuy. More info on those incredible nerds later in the video. Here we go. The folks at Meze Audio sent these my way to test and review. This is the Meze 105 AER, a new open back headphone from Meze, primed to do battle in that premium middle space that I have been having a blast playing around with cans around that $400 price point. Meze is a premium audio manufacturer out of Romania, going on 14 years of delivering high-end headphones and earbuds. They quickly built a following for their design philosophy and for how comfortable their products are to use. I've spent a lot of time with my ears in Meze 99s. I just recently took the Alba earbuds out for a spin, and the 105s arrive at a time where I would heartily consider myself a fan of planar magnetic headphones. The 105s are not planars. They use a dynamic driver, but I like them a lot. More on the technology and sound quality in just a bit. This frame, this design, immediately we can heap tons of praise on how well they fit and how comfortable they are. Meze makes some silly, bold claims about comfort and a premium sensorial experience, and I wish I could mock that. Yeah, I wish I could be a bit more snarky about it, but these are so darn comfy. I'm not particularly bothered by keeping some heavier cans on my head, like the Odyssey Maxwell gaming headset, as one example. I reviewed that a while back, but after a couple of hours, I will feel the Maxwell on my skull. Meze is just in another league for fit. It's a lightweight build that looks gorgeous, and the design accents that make it look unique are practical to the function of wearing a headphone for a long listening session. The ear cups don't swivel, but they do angle just a little, and the steel bands clamp with that perfect Goldilocks amount of force. They stay on snug, but they don't put your head in a vice. And then the head strap is sublime. You see, there are no telescoping parts to adjust the height of the band or the distance on the ear cups. The band has elastic bits to stretch higher and lower and get that correct vertical fit. The 105s come with thick, cushy velour pads. Zap Brannigan would approve. Really pillowy, no break-in needed. They're cushy out of the box. One of the nice things about this overall design, there are very few flex points that might transmit noise into the ear cup. When a headband creaks or groans, there's almost nothing like that here. You move your head and move your jaw around, and these stay practically silent. Though the cable that comes with them, that will send some of that movement noise right into your ear, especially if the cable's kind of rubbing up against like a zipper on a hoodie. Now, I've been glowing on this design, but it kind of doesn't matter how they look or even how comfortable they might be if they don't sound good. And at this price, they have to sound real good. No YouTuber acting, no hyperbole. They're kind of blowing my mind. With a dynamic driver, these are kind of the perfect headphone response to the planar presentation I'm often praising in other reviews. I need to lay this out as directly as possible. It's not either or. It's not better or worse. And once you're climbing above $200 on cabled headphones, you're not really paying for a linear improvement to quality. $400 cans are not 4 times betterer and gooder than a nice $100 headphone on a simple graph of quality. When you start spending more, you should be starting to zero in on particular tuning characteristics, presentation, and details that you like. The 105s here aren't going to immediately retire all my planar and ribbon headphones. I'm not saying this just for video views. When I talk about how much I enjoy that planar presentation and the articulation of fine details. The whole vibe at Meze, though, is comfort. Everything about the Meze cans I've used is comfy, including the audio presentation. If you're not a fan of how sharp or aggressive the presentation can be on planars, this is the perfect response. I really like this. It is a bit of audio voodoo in my brain because this isn't dull. or soft. It's still a clear reproduction. Buzzy and raspy and distorted tracks are still buzzy and raspy and distorted. It's just staged in a way that won't be as fatiguing for some listeners as the plainer punch can be. I've been struggling in my audio reviews because audiophile terminology is unique and obtuse and full of emotional appeals. There is a scientific discipline to measuring audio quality, and then we want to talk about how the art and the presentation of the art might make us feel. I've seen a handful of reviews on these now that range a wild spectrum when they're talking about tuning. They're neutral. They're too neutral. They're not too neutral enough. They're warm with a house tuning. They're too safe. They're too accurate. They're too colorful. And it's actually kind of a nice problem to have that we're flush with amazing choices for headphones in this space. You always got to take this with a pinch of salt and find those reviewers that kind of align with your tastes too. My take on the 105s using my ears might not totally line up with what you hear when you put these on your skull, which is one of the reasons why I think so many people think audiophile gear is just snake oil. So in Meze's lineup, we have the 99s, which are bassier and richer and thumpier. Most recently, I've been playing with the 99 Neos as my bassy, comfy cans. Then Meze sells the 109s, which are supposed to be more analytical. And then the 105s seem perfectly set to step right in between the 99s and 109s in terms of price and audio performance. Yeah, the folks talking about house tuning on these 105s, I get it. There's some color, just a bit of a lift to the lows over the 109, but they're not as thumpy as the Neos. And that's a nice balance. That's a really nice color to play with. I'm always going to prattle on about wanting more mids. I'm a mids junkie. So the folks saying these are sort of, but not quite neutral, I like bringing that sound in the mids up front just a little bit more, where I think it helps define instruments, helps preserve effects and distortion, and brings out more of the characteristics in singers. But I think one of the perks Meze is bringing, what makes the 105 a little more comfortable, is the attention in the low mids. About that place, that transition between bass and mids. It prevents the sound from getting boomy or floppy. We hear these lows with good sustain, and we'll talk about that a bit more, just a little bit. I run this little playlist on Qobuz, so you can see what my headphone testing tracks are. The rhythm guitar in JD McPherson's Northside Gal is clearly positioned and accessible. On cheaper, less articulate headphones, that guitar can vanish. There's the peaky, shrill sections of WTF by OK Go. That's one of my torture testing tracks. It's really mixed. I think too aggressive, it's too loud. But on these, those shimmering sections aren't piercing or uncomfortable. Ditto the sibilants on Lord's Stoned at the Nail Salon. We're clearly capturing the air, the hiss that's coming off of her lips, but it's not slicing through my ear canal in an unpleasant way. The articulation and sampling in Daft Punk, Robot Rock, really fun and punchy. Similarly, the expressive kick drum recordings from Tool, and I really like the open feeling on jazz and R&B when there are simpler arrangements. Like Dave Brubeck is just sultry on these cans. Honestly, anything with a well-recorded saxophone is going to be coming in a little warm under the collar. I really can't point to any distinct weak spot where I would say, oh, this tuning, this style, this presentation does a disservice to this kind of music or this genre. They're sure-footed, they're colorful, and they're very capable at a wide variety of musical genres. The 105s are rich across the whole EQ, but they're not neutral in a recording scientific or analytical sense. That's why I'm putting them up against planers in my brain. When I hear this kind of presentation and when we have this much room for instrumentation, things are properly placed, I usually associate that with planers. Yeah, I like the highs. I'm really sensitive to sibilants and air up in the crystal area of the frequency response. And I think the 105s paint that in a really pretty way. Like I was saying, female singers that work that mic really close, or they have really breathy singing styles. It's like I get all the presence of that voice, but I'm not getting stabbed in the ear with the last hiss of air coming out of their mouth. But before we move on though, and we do, like I said, we need to revisit the bass and sub bass. Meze claims a frequency response down to 5 hertz. I am not a bass junkie or a skull rumbler, so I tend not to torture test down into the absolute lows. But I was kind of curious though, if I was really paying attention to some of that structure in a pop track, what would these do that my planers might not accomplish as well? I went digging, I went searching online. A lot of folks will fire up Billie Eilish Bad Guy because that bass lick is super low frequency. But I mean, no disrespect if you like that track. I really don't like how her voice is often recorded and how much mouth biology I can hear on her recordings. So I suffered tremendous amounts of misophonia on lip smacks and mouth movements. So I've been trying to find a good test to help isolate lows, and I think I found it in my collection with Lullaby by A Perfect Circle. It's less a song and more a performance art piece meant to make you feel uncomfortable, but it's got this sub bass line running the track. Putting it in a spectrum analyzer, the loudest part of the track is just a shelf straight line from 40 hertz down to 1 cycle per second. On a really good pair of similarly priced planers like my Odyssey MM100, I'm clearly hearing the bass attack, and there's some low end. It's satisfying, giving my head a good buzz. On the 105s, I'm hearing the attack, and then I'm feeling the rest of that decay in a way that's a little different and richer than what I can pull off with my MM100s. It gives that audio piece a different vibe. It makes the presentation even eerier. Like, I'm wearing headphones. I shouldn't be able to feel the rumble in my chest, but my brain is telling me that I kinda do. And that, to me, is special in a consumer-friendly tuned premium audio headphone. This is not skull rumbly or mega bassy in the way that we usually sell that to consumers. My mids are delicious and upfront, and I have lows that dig deep for the saturation, decay, and sub bass. It's really versatile, and there's plenty of room to also tweak some of this in your EQ. If you want them to rumble more, you can get them to rumble more. Now, moving on, this open venting design looks, aesthetically like it should be a wide open and airy sound. And the soundstage is very good, but these aren't the widest headphones I've ever used. More, there's something that happens with this ear cup and driver housing that there's ever so slightly a little noise attenuation. Super minimal. But I put these on and I hear slightly less of all the daytime activity in my neighborhood compared against some of my other similarly priced open-backed headphones. There's very little sound leakage from what I'm hearing coming out through these vents. So this is nothing like a closed back can like the 99s, but I think it's an interesting balance between the widest, most open sound and helping the user slightly reduce potential distractions around them in their environment. And I just realized, I don't even have this in the script, that I went this whole video talking about these headphones, not mentioning what I used to drive them. The cans are decently easy to drive. I'm not running much fancy stuff these days. A small portable DAC of some kind is often plenty for me to have a good time in the headphone mid-range. Specifically, most of this review I was paired with this little Shanling UA4. I spent a little time with my FIO BTR7, and I always love cycling through my iFi Griffin. But I really like the new ESS chip in this little Shanling. Doing a little comparative listening, I thought they were driven well from the headphone jacks on my Focusrite audio recording interface. And they even sounded pretty good plugged directly into my laptop. They sounded better on a nice little DAC, but they're not terribly difficult to drive. It is a point worth bringing up. I was a little worried about the impedance, but they seem sensitive enough for most consumer headphone jacks to get a pretty good sound out of them. Now, lastly, it's also fun to see Meze continuing to build a little ecosystem around their headsets. An expensive headphone might not be your first pick for a gaming headset, but it's nice to know that an accessory add-on, like the Meze microphone here, can turn your expensive headphone into something you might want to use for work or for gaming. If you've made it this far into the video, you might have noticed this entire review was recorded on the Meze boom mic, connected to the 105s and plugged directly into my laptop's headphone port. It should be pretty clear by now that I am charmed by these headphones. I've always liked Meze, but I often hold the 99 Classics and the 99 Neo as a bit more specific a sound that doesn't always line up with what I like to hear. Never questioning that these are great cans, just not always great cans for me. I still really like that edgy, faster, transient presentation on planers. But I found myself swapping the 105s and A/B listening a lot more, and it was never a clear victory for any of the headphones in my collection. I really liked the 105s here, but then maybe I liked the Odyssey over there, and maybe a Verum was more my speed on this track. It's been a while since I've had a dynamic driver in the mix at this price that really took my attention away from planers like this. The Meze 105 AER, the 105 AER. This is a really fun headphone, and I think a lot of people are gonna like it. So I will, of course, leave some links down below this video where you can find more information on Meze products like the 105, the 99s, maybe this fancy boom mic, that maybe something like this is your speed. Some helpful resources for where you can shop this gear online. I love digging into audio stuff. I'm really struggling not to turn my entire channel into just a headphone and earbud review channel, and the folks who get a first look, a first peek at my reviews and editorials and audio tests are my amazing patrons. All of the incredible people over on patreon.com/SomeGadgetGuy. A huge thank you from the bottom of my heart. This list of names scrolling by on your screen right now, my videos and reviews and editorials would not be possible without these people's generosity. They're basically the coolest tech pals in the universe, and they've helped create a really fun tech community that I enjoy spending time on. Coolest tech pals in the universe, so I hope you'll check them out. Now, you know where you can find me around the rest of the internet, at SomeGadgetGuy, basically everywhere, but these days I'm trying to spend a bit more time on the Mastodons, a lot less so on the Facebooks and the Instagrams and the Threads, and definitely not on that dumpster fire site, and I will catch you all on the next review.